Welcome back. Have you ever been in a position where you had to read a note you wrote years ago, possibly a note from mathematics class you did 3 years ago, and you had no idea what you wrote in that note? Code can also feel the same way if we don't leave helpful explanations for ourselves and for others. This is where comments and documentation come in. Comments are notes that we write in our code to explain our code, but they do not have any effect on the code during the execution of the program. Comments are ignored by Python when running the program. They are purely for humans to read and understand. Let's start with the simplest type of comment, which is the single line comment. To write a comment in Python, start with the hashtag. Everything after the hashtag on that line is ignored by Python. So for example, to start a comment, you start with the hashtag and everything, you can say this is a comment. Okay, so everything after the hashtag is ignored by Python. Okay, so you can say print. Okay, let's say, okay, you can say this is a comment lesson. All right, so if you run this now, only this line will be taken note by Python. The line before it will be ignored because this is a comment started by an hashtag. We can also have a comment after this. We can say this is another comment ignored by, can say, Python. Okay, if you run this, it still doesn't have any effect on the program. Okay, let's practice adding meaningful comments to our code. So let's say we have a line here. We can say is raining. Let's get rid of that line. We can say is raining. Okay, raining. I think raining is correct. Okay, so we can say is raining is true. Right, so we can add the comments to this line that we store whether it's raining or not. All right, this is raining. I think I'm having issue with the spelling of raining. Okay, we can as well put the comments before the line. So let's come home and then we put it at the top of it. All right, we can have another line. Let's say age. Age is equal to, let's say, 25 or 35, whatever. So we can say age text. Age text. So we are converting age to text. To convert that, we use the string function and then we are going to pass age. So before this line, we can write a comment that this line is converting age to string from integer. Okay, converting con, right? So this is how you use comments in your code to pass information to either yourself or to others, because later in the future when you are coming back to read your code without explanations like this, the code might get confusing. But you can use comments to pass explanation in your code, explaining to your future self that this is the function of this part of the code, this is the function of that part of the program. The second type of comment is the multi-line comment. What we just wrote now is the single line comment. We also have multi-line comment. Sometimes we need to write longer explanations. We can use multi-line comment for this kind of long explanations. To create a multi-line comment, use triple quotes, either single or double triple quotes. So let's say we want to write a long explanation, you use triple quotes. So you have 1 quote, 2, and 3. So PyCharm is going to complete that for you. So you have triple quotes at the start of the comment, and then you have another triple quotes at the end of the comment. Okay, so now inside of the quotes, you can write multi-line comment. So we can say this is a multi-line comment. All right. So we can say it can span several lines. Okay. Then we can say Python ignores everything between the Alright, so this is how you create multi-line comments. You use hashtag to create single line comment. You use triple quotes, either single or double. You can as well use single quotes. If I get rid of this, can have, okay, so can move this down. Okay, so get rid of that. So you can either use single or double quote for your multi-line comments. Although information between triple quotes are technically not comments, but triple quotes are used this way for multi-line explanations since it will be ignored by Python either ways. You should avoid overusing multi-line comment for occasions that single-line comments can handle. There are some best practices that you should take note whenever you are dealing with comments or whenever you are using comments in your code. The first is you should keep your comments concise and clear. For example, let's say we perform a sum operation. Let's say we have 2 plus 3. So to write comment for this, you should avoid writing too long and excessive comments. For example, let's say we say add the numbers 2 and 3 together and store the results in the variable sum. This is just a typical example of bad comment. This is too long just for this operation. You should ensure that your comment is clear and concise. So if you want to rewrite this now, you can have another line before this. So you can say calculate the sum. Okay, so this is concise and it describes whatever you are doing in this line. Another best practice that you should take note of when dealing with comments and when writing comment is you should comment the why, not just what. For example, let's say you have a variable of length and you say length is 2. You also have width. You have width to be, let's say, 3. So length should be T before H, all right? Okay, now let's say we want to calculate the area of a rectangle from these two parameters. So you have area to be length times width, okay? All right, now if you want to add comment to this line now, you should avoid writing what. Instead, write why. So instead of writing multiply length and width. Okay, this is what you did. Instead of writing this, you can write the y. So here you can say calculate the area of the rectangle. So this is much more better than writing what you did. What you did is already obvious in the line of code. So instead of writing what, you write y. All right, so another best practice is you should use comments to explain complex parts. Whenever you are programming and you implement complex operation in your program, ensure to add comments to that complex part. It will help you and others to understand what is happening there later in the future. Another best practice is you should avoid outdated comments in your code base. This is very, very important. Avoid outdated comments in your code base. For example, in this line of code, let's say you perform an addition operation. You can say addition is equal to, you can say length plus width. Okay, so now if you want to comment this, you can say this. Okay, you can say add length and width. Possibly this is what you initially did in your code, but later on you changed the operation to a multiplication operation. So always avoid outdated comments. Immediately you are performing the operation, immediately you effect a change, ensure that you effect the change in the comment. Because if you leave this like this, later on your comment is saying adding, whereas what you actually did is multiplication. This is just a simple illustration of the point. Always ensure that you avoid outdated comment, because outdated comment is much worse than not having any comment at all. It is better to not have a comment than having outdated comment, because the outdated comment will be misleading whoever is reading your code. The code will be doing something else, whereas your comment is saying something else. Remember that good comments are like helpful notes in your code. They should explain why something is done, clarify complex parts, help organize your code, stay up to date, and then you should be clear and concise. Comments might seem optional, but they are essential for writing code that's easy to maintain and share. In our next lesson, we will learn about getting input from users, which is a way of interacting with users through your programs. In that case, I will see you in the next lesson.